Hi, I'm Daniel Andrews, owner and creator of the DAN Show, and welcome to my 2022 NFL Draft Grade Special. Now, if you're new here, it's your first time here, I just got to ask you, are you a draft junkie? Do you want to talk football 365 days out of the year? Well, if so, welcome home. Hit that subscribe button, join the growing community of draft junkies and people that want to talk football all year round. Now, I'm not a draft expert. I'm just a junkie. I made 36 draft videos. It's under the playlist 2022 NFL Mock Draft. It should be posted right here if I did my homework right. Now, what I did over the last couple of days, I completely ignored social media, ESPN, the NFL Network. You're not getting regurgitated information. You're just going off of what I think from my notes, my draft videos, and my research. Now, I'm creating this video as a conversation starter. I offer my opinion, but I really want to hear from you. Now, while I love getting praise, who doesn't? I want people that believe I made a mistake to drop a comment below. How did your team do in the draft? What did I get wrong? Let me know. Drop a comment below. Now, let's start the grading. Now, I thought one team clearly won this draft. They got an A+. I gave one team an A. I gave one team an A-. I gave three teams a B+. Three teams got a B. Three teams got a B-, and three teams got a C+. Now, I gave six teams a C. Six teams got a C-, four teams got a D+, and one team got a D. Now, I'm going worst to first, so I'm going to start the video out with the team that I gave a D to, and that is the Super Bowl winning Los Angeles Rams. Now, the Rams get this draft grade because they gave up their second and their third round pick, Devon Miller, who's going to be a Buffalo Bill in 2022. Now, all 32 NFL teams would give up a second and a third round pick to win a Super Bowl. Now, it's not a mistake, but bottom line, you get a draft grade of D because you have a hole to fill in 2022 and you don't have the draft capital to do so. But like I said, 32 NFL teams would give up a second and third round pick to win a Super Bowl. Now, I like the players the Rams chose, but the one hole they really needed to fill was left tackle. Andrew Whitworth retires, and there were several tackles available in the third round. You ended up with the 8 draft picks. I really thought that you could have traded up and got one of these tackles. Now, Logan Bruss, their first pick, is a really good offensive lineman, a player that I like, but I'm not sure he's a day one starter. I also really liked 5th round pick Kyren Williams and 6th round pick Quentin Lake. His father was Carnell Lake, a really good football player for the Steelers, all-decade team. I like when players draft. I like when teams draft players with an NFL bloodline. The 4 teams I gave a D+ grade to are the Minnesota Vikings, the Indianapolis Colts, the Miami Dolphins, and the Buffalo Bills. I'm starting off with Minnesota. I almost gave them a D. Now, they get this grade because they allowed both Detroit and Green Bay some players. If Jameson Williams or Christian Watson end up having good careers, it's on you, Vikings. While the compensation was fair for Green Bay, Detroit and the Colts clearly won their trades. Now, what really gets me is that you trade down from 12 to 32, then you take Cine. Well, while you're at 12, why not take the best safety in the draft and Kyle Hamilton? He was there. Clearly a better player. Now, I like Andrew Booth. I actually had Booth rated higher than Cine, but the way this draft worked out, you could have stayed at 12 and 46 and got Hamilton and Booth and not help your division rivals, Detroit and Green Bay, get key players. Going into the 2023 draft, the Vikings are going to get lots of calls to trade because they don't mind losing draft day trades. Now, I really like Booth and Cine. These are 2 day one starters, players I really like, but their next 2 picks, massive reaches. I almost gave Minnesota a D, but 2 day one starters in the secondary, 2 players I really like. That's why I'm being generous in giving the Vikings a D+, but Vikings do better. Indianapolis gets a D+. Now, their first round pick was used on Carson Wentz, who's in Washington, so that's the main reason you get a D+. Then you go ahead and you trade down. I really like to trade down, especially the compensation with the Minnesota Vikings. Just talked about that. But then use your first 2 picks on Alec Pierce and Jelani Woods. Both these players are reaches. Now, these players are going to be great fits in Indianapolis, but they were reaches. Raymond at 77, absolutely awesome. My favorite pick in the draft. If he ends up being the starting left tackle, boosts this draft grade way up. And then Nick Cross at 96, great pick. Now, the Miami Dolphins, I gave a D+ to. They gave up a ton of draft capital for Tyreek Hill. Despite using their first-round pick on Jalen Waddle, a player with a very similar skill set, now you have a first-time head coach, a first-time offensive coordinator, a quarterback still developing in Tua. Now, if Tyreek Hill has the same impact in Miami they did in Kansas City, great job, but here's the thing. You gave up all this draft capital on a wide receiver. You're left with only 1 third-round pick, 1 fourth-round pick, 2 seventh-round picks, and use your fourth-round pick on a fucking wide receiver? Are you serious? Then your third-round pick, selection 102, Channing Tindall, not a bad player, but I had him ranked significantly lower than Leo Chenal, picked at 103. Now, every team uses a different grading scale, but bottom line, Tindall didn't even start in college, and you draft him above a guy who would probably be your day one starter? I don't get this at all. Now Tindall did play a lot for Georgia, part of that great defense there, but Leo Chenal, I think, would be a day one starter. Tindall didn't even start in college. Now, if Tyreek Hill is a top 5 wide receiver in 2022, kudos to the Miami Dolphins, but I didn't like this draft at all. Next is Buffalo, and I couldn't decide between a D+ and a C-. So I'm giving Buffalo a 69. Now, massive fail in round 1. They let Kansas City trade over them and get Trent McDuffie. Buffalo easily had McDuffie rated higher than Elam. I had several other corners rated higher than Elam. But bottom line, you get knocked out of the playoffs the last 2 years by the Kansas City Chiefs. Then you let the Chiefs screw you over in the draft. Now, the Chiefs did have to trade up with New England to get this pick. So there's a chance Buffalo called New England. New England just hung up on them and didn't want to deal with a division rival, but this was a big mistake. Now, Cook at 63, your second round pick, great value, and I love this guy, but you signed Duke Johnson in free agency. Devin Singletary really stepped up last year, and then you had a third round pick you used on Zach Moss in 2020. Buffalo is a pass-first team whose second leading rusher is the quarterback, so why'd you make this pick? Third round pick, Terrell Bernard, I had rated behind Channing Tindall, the Dolphins pick, 13 picks later. This was a big reach. The NFL Network actually gave him a 5th round grade. Now, I did like Shakir, the wide receiver, in the 5th round. And the punter out of San Diego State, well, hating the cold from San Diego State, is a really good punter. 6 teams ended up with a C- grade: the Detroit Lions, the Dallas Cowboys, the New Orleans Saints, the Houston Texans, the Los Angeles Chargers, and the New England Patriots. I'm going to start with the Detroit Lions. The only reason they didn't get a D or a D+ was I absolutely loved the compensation that they got to trade up to 12. Clearly a win compensation-wise with a divisional opponent, but bottom line, you're a 3-win team with the least talented roster in the NFL. You got 5 draft picks in the first 66 selections in the NFL draft, and you come out with 1 day 1 starter. This is how you get fired 101. If Williams was healthy and the Lions took him at 12, I still wouldn't have liked this trade. You had too many holes to fill. Then you take Pascal at 46. Not only is this a colossal reach, he plays the same fucking position as Hutchinson, so probably a backup. Then you reach again for pick number 97. Take another player, probably won't start. Due to time constraints, I can't go over the amount of things I would have done differently if I was the Detroit Lions. I'm actually being exceptionally generous giving them a C-. Bottom line, if I was a Detroit Lions fan, I would be really pissed off at this draft. Next is Dallas, and their biggest issues was addressing the offensive line and replacing Randy Gregory, and they did both of these things. They chose athletic players with massive upsides. I would have gone in a different direction. I would have taken safer prospects, guys I know that can play. Smith, I really thought he's the first round pick out of Tulsa. I really thought that he would be a guard in the NFL. The NFL Network's calling him a tackle. I'm not sure what Dallas plans on doing, playing him at guard or tackle. If you do plan on playing him at right tackle, I think he is going to struggle. He did have a lot of penalties, but massive upside. Williams, your second round pick, famously struggles against the run. Philadelphia Eagles led the NFL in rushing offense last year, so that's not good. I loved all four of their fifth round picks. I thought they did a really good job, especially the offensive tackle out of North Dakota. If he ends up starting at right tackle, you move Smith inside. I give the Cowboys a much higher grade. These aren't bad picks. Williams in the second round was a reach. And while Zico, the North Dakota State fifth round tackle, if he pans out, I would have given this a much higher grade. Personally, I also thought that they didn't address the offensive line nearly enough in this draft. Next is the New Orleans Saints. And first off, they gave up a 2023 first round draft pick plus some extra draft capital. That way they could have two selections in the first round of the 2022 draft. Then they move up 5 spots, and I'm firmly convinced, hey, the only way you give up this much draft capital is for a quarterback, but instead you dress Chris Olave, one of my favorite players in the draft, but the amount of draft capital, including a 2023 first-round pick for Olave, is quite a bit. Pending at 19 probably starts day one at left tackle, but then you get Taylor. They're picking the second round, kind of a reach. I thought he might play safety. Really athletic. I kind of thought the Saints would sign Tyrann Mathieu. Then definitely Taylor plays corner. Could possibly start day one opposite Lattimore. I've seen weirder things. Bottom line, you gave up multiple first-round picks to draft Chris Olave. If he's not an absolute star, this is really wasted draft capital. Next is the Houston Texans. First off, I didn't like Stingley at 3 at all. I love the trade down from 13 to 15 to get some extra draft capital. Then you draft Kenyon Green, one of my favorite players, at 15. I love Kenyon Green. I would have gone in a different direction. Then you draft Petrie at 37. This doesn't make any sense. If you wanted safety, why not take Hamilton at 13? A much better player. I didn't get that at all. Your first 3 picks really didn't make any sense. And why didn't you go after an edge rusher? I didn't get that at all. Then you move up to 44 and you trade with Cleveland. Really great trade, by the way. You give Cleveland some draft picks. And as far as trade compensation, you clearly win that. But then you draft a player who isn't going to play till October, maybe November. Are you fucking serious? When you have a young quarterback, a young wide receiver room, and you draft a guy who's not even going to practice during training camp, this is a bad move for a 4-win team. I really did love their next 2 picks. Christian Harris at 75, fantastic value, maybe a potential starter. And then your 4th round pick, a running back out of Florida, Pierce. For this offense, he's not only going to make the team, he's going to contribute this year. This is a really good fit here. I really like this pick in the 4th round. Next is the Los Angeles Chargers. I mocked Jermaine Johnson free-falling in my mock draft, and the Chargers taking him at 17, put him opposite Khalil Mack, and I thought this was going to be a great pick. So when they picked Johnson at 17, they took Zion Johnson, a player I really liked. But the thing is, though, the Chargers had a hole at tackle, and Zion Johnson's a guard. Their 6th round pick, Jeremy Slayer, I'm butchering the name, I apologize, easily their best pick in the 6th round, is another guy plays guard. And again, the Chargers had a need at tackle. They draft 2 guards. I didn't get that. You used your 2nd round draft pick on Khalil Mack. Now, he did miss half the season, turns 32 in February. I'm not giving you a lot of credit for that, but I do like the move. Spiller in the 4th round, really good running back, great value, just not a guy who catches the ball really well, struggles in pass protection, and you're a pass-happy team. 3rd round pick, JT Woods, solid depth, but are you making this pick because you want to move on from Derwin James or Nasir Adderley, 2 safeties really entrenched as starters? See, with the Chargers, I like a lot of the players they picked. They're just not good fits for this team. That's why you get a C-. I could easily give this team a D+. It's just that they drafted some really good players. I don't get where they really fit with this team. Finally, to round up my C- grades is the New England Patriots. Really great move in the first round to trade down, get some extra draft picks. Now, while Strange was a reach at 29, he is a day one starter at a position of need. Then they traded from 54 to 50. I love the compensation. Both compensation-wise, they won both trades with Kansas City. Not by a lot, but for a little bit. And it is important that you win these trades. But I didn't get why Tyquan Thornton was the pick at 50. I mean, he was fastest player at the combine, but he's a very limited player. And then the next picks after Thornton was Cam Jurgens at 51, George Pickens at 52, Alex Pierce at 53, and then finally Sky Moore, a wide receiver. A lot of people thought could have gone in the first round, goes to Kansas City at 54. If Kansas City wanted Thornton at 50, they obviously would have taken him at 50. New England's really missed on wide receivers in the draft, so it's really easy not to like this pick. Now, their third round pick I absolutely loved, and I didn't love this pick for all teams, but the New England Patriots always put a large emphasis on special teams player. This guy's going to be a special teams demon, and I really loved all three of their fourth round picks. Not players I would have liked for all teams, loved for the New England Patriots organization. Now, after the first two rounds, I could have easily given the Patriots a D, but they did get a day one starter and the fastest player at the combine. Also, their third round pick and their three fourth round picks are players that are really good fits for the Patriots organization. I gave 6 teams a C grade. The Washington Commanders, the Arizona Cardinals, the Denver Broncos, the Las Vegas Raiders, the New York Giants, and San Francisco 49ers. I'm going to start with Washington. The trade for Wentz, I'm not going to include in this draft grade because I'm not really sure how to assess the value. I can go positive and negative on it. I decided just to remain neutral. The trade down from 11 to 16, you lose the compensation battle, but you get some extra draft picks, which I think that you wanted and needed. I understood the logic behind it. Dotson at 16 I thought was a reach. Same thing for Mathis at 46. You're not picking up Deron Payne's fifth-year option. So a future starter provides defensive line depth. I get it. Again, it was a real reach at 46. Robinson late in the third player I did like. And Butler in the fourth. Ron Rivera's had some success with mid to late round draft picks in the defensive back. So I really like this Butler pick. Howell with the first pick in the 5th round. Fantastic pick. If Howell starts even one game in 2022, this draft grade goes way up. Fantastic pick. You could have taken him in the 3rd or 4th round. It would have been a good pick. Top of the 5th. Fantastic move. Really disappointed they didn't address offensive line till round 7. Next is Arizona. First off, they have a rare win-win trade with the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens trade Hollywood Brown to Arizona, and he gets to reunite with his former teammate, former OU teammate, Kyler Murray. So I really love this fit. Now, this trade only works for Arizona if they can keep him from leaving via free agency in a year or two. So that's kind of the big question here. McBride at 55, decent value, but are you planning on using 2 tight end sets, or are you going to use him as a wide receiver? A little confused about that. The next 2 picks help mitigate the loss of Chandler Jones, both decent players, decent value. Ingram in the 6th round is a player I really like. I bet he makes the team. Basically, this draft revolves completely around Hollywood Brown. Not just does he have to pan out, you got to be able to keep him with the team. If he doesn't stay with the team, he bolts via free agency, then it's a complete disaster. Next up is the Denver Broncos. Now, you used multiple draft capital to acquire Russell Wilson. It's kind of hard to figure this into a draft grade, but you do get a future Hall of Fame quarterback. Now, it worked really good with Peyton Manning, but when you have a quarterback who has a consecutive games played streak broken, and he turns 34 mid-season, the first thing I want to look at is the massive hole at right tackle, which Denver completely ignored in this draft. You had some good value drafting Nick Bonito in the bottom of the 2nd round, but you spent a ton of money on Randy Gregory, and you got Bradley Chubb on the other side, and there was a bunch of tackles that went early in the 3rd round. DeLuch, I might be mispronouncing that, helps mitigate the loss of Noah Fant. Solid player, possible starter. Again, no right tackle drafted, and that was the number one thing that you should have addressed, especially when acquiring a quarterback who's going to be 34 midseason. The most confusing thing about the Denver Broncos draft is right before the draft, they signed 3 defensive backs. And I say right before, I'm talking about the weeks leading into the draft. So you signed 3 defensive backs. Last year you draft 4 defensive backs, and this year you draft 3 more defensive backs. Nobody to play right tackle. You did draft a center in the 5th round, but center's completely different than right tackle, which you completely ignored. This didn't make any sense, but there is some good players and some good draft value here by the Denver Broncos. Next is the Las Vegas Raiders. After giving up a ton of draft compensation for Davante Adams, before the draft started, I was getting ready to make fun of the Raiders. I was instantly going to give them a D. But then they drafted some really good players. Dylan Parham late in the 3rd, probably a day 1 starter. Zamir White, someone the Raiders are going to absolutely love, nicknamed Zeus Athletic Freak. Georgia had a ton of running backs, so this guy, very little tread on the tires. He'll contribute right away. He's not going to overtake Josh Jacobs as a starter, but he will play in 2022. The Raiders bring in a new defensive coordinator, Patrick Graham, who wants to run a 3-4 defense, but when he was hired, says it's more nickel formation. It's more of a 4-2-5 type of defense nowadays. And the next 2 draft picks, they draft more traditional 3-4 defensive linemen. So I really liked both of these picks. Now, here's the deal. You don't have a draft pick till pick number 90. You get a day 1 starter and several players who are going to contribute in 2022. This was a really good draft by the Las Vegas Raiders. Next is the New York Giants. Now, picks 5 and 7. You kind of have to get really good players, and they did what they were supposed to do. Then I was really excited the Giants traded down twice in the 2nd round. Then they completely fuck up and draft Wan'Dale Robinson. And I like this player, but I liked him in the 4th, 5th round. And I hate him for the Giants. You used your 1st round pick last year on Kadarius Toney while you already had Sterling Shepard. I don't get this at all. Then I thought you reached with both your you have 2 3rd round picks. Both of them, those picks were reaches. I like their 4th round picks more, and I like their 3rd round picks. This could have been a great draft, especially after Thibodeau and Neal, but Robinson at 43 is my least favorite pick in the whole draft. And I wasn't a fan of either 3rd round pick. So I had a hard time picking a draft grade for the Giants. Most people are probably going to give them a good draft grade. I simply can't do it. There's so many other players I would have taken at 43, 67, and 81. A complete whiff followed by 2 reaches. Really ruined what should have been a great draft grade. I'm going with a C despite 2 potential superstars in this draft. My final C goes to the San Francisco 49ers. Now, no 1st round pick due to the Trey Lance trade, and with Jimmy G still on the roster, I could really give the 49ers a D in the draft just on the quarterback situation alone. However, I'm just going to kind of go with the picks I see here. Drake Jackson at 61, really great pick. D Ford has all sorts of problems staying healthy. So sooner or later, Jackson's going to start. Perfect fit for this defense. Really good player. Great value at 61. They drafted a running back in the 3rd and 6th round last year. They drafted another running back in the 3rd round. But if there's one team I'm not going to question when they draft a running back, it's San Francisco 49ers. So might seem like overkill, but a lot of success drafting running backs, and they do like to rotate the running backs in and out of roster. So can't really ding the 49ers for that. Danny Gray's a player I liked, but it only makes sense if you're planning on moving on from Deebo Samuel, but if Deebo stays and he's in your plans long term, I would have gone defensive back. Instead, Tariq Castro-Fields in round 6, absolute steal. I bet he makes the team and he contributes this year. Really like this guy. Great pick in round 6. This was a really hard team for me to grade because I feel like I got to factor in Trey Lance somehow. I went with a C, but if Trey Lance pans out, I would give this draft grade a much higher grade. I gave three teams a C plus. I gave the Atlanta Falcons, the Chicago Bears, and the Cleveland Browns all C pluses. I'm going to start with the Atlanta Falcons here. The reason why this draft grade is so low is because the Drake London pick was my least favorite in the first round. I remember N'Keal Harry coming out of Arizona State with a very similar scouting report, complete bust. And N'Keal Harry didn't have any injury concerns that Drake London does. But after that, you ace the rest of the draft. Last year, you bring in Dean Pease. You switch defensive schemes. One thing he really needed was help in the front seven. You absolutely get it. Igubite, I'm sorry, I'm probably butchering that name, and Malone, instant pass rush. Anderson could be a superstar at linebacker. Then you pass on the local kid. You take Desmond Ridder instead. Absolute steal. A-plus pick. Wouldn't be surprised if Desmond Ridder ends up as your starting quarterback sometime in 2022. Then in the fifth round, Tyler Allgeier. Again, apologize if I'm mispronouncing the name. Out of BYU. Not only does he make the team, I bet you he contributes. So you get a player in the fifth round going to contribute in 2022. I bet you he does. The last two picks in the sixth round, why not take a couple of national championships from Georgia? Makes all the sense in the world. Take local kids from team again that won a national championship. If I liked the London pick, this draft grade could easily be anywhere from a B plus to an A. I didn't like the pick, so Falcons fans, despite a great draft, you're only getting a C plus from me. Next is Chicago Bears, and I know I'm being kind of hypocritical here because I ding other teams for draft trade mistakes, but I'm not dinging the Bears. Bottom line, I thought that Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, the former head coach and general manager, put Justin Fields in a bad situation. I'm not going to blame the new Bears regimes for mistakes the old regime makes. I'm just going for what the Bears did in this draft, and I'm not really dinging them for not having a first round pick. It may be unfair, but it's just what I'm decided to do. Kyler Gordon should have been a first round pick. This is a day one starter, and then you have a second pick in the second round. You pick Brisker, another guy that's going to start day one. So you get 2 day one starters in the second round. Absolutely love this. Third round pick, Velus Jones, 4-down player, immediate special team standouts, replaces Jagreen Grant as your return guy, a guy you lose in free agency. I also like that you took a punter in the 7th round. This shows that this regime and this coaching staff is going to put an emphasis on special teams. I really like that. Plus, they drafted 4 offensive linemen late in the draft. Any one of these offensive linemen make the team and have an impact in 2022, you could easily make this draft grade much higher. I could easily give the Bears a B for what they did in the draft. I got a feeling I'm in a minority here, but I really like what the Chicago Bears did in the draft, and I kind of feel like C plus might be a little low for this draft. I decided it's too soon to give the Cleveland Browns credit or blame for the Deshaun Watson trade. So I'm just going to go on what I think they did in the draft. First off, I like that they traded down to get more picks, but I thought they lost the compensation battle with Houston. So while I did like to trade down, I thought they should have got more. Bottom line, the Browns' first pick at the top of the third round, 4th pick in the third round, is for Emerson, a player I really like. But why would Cleveland draft a corner? They used the first round pick on Newsome. Greedy Williams was a second round pick. They gave Ward over $100 million this offseason. I'm curious if Emerson is just depth at corner or if they're planning on using him at safety. This is a guy I really liked. I'm not really sure why the Browns picked him. The next 5 picks of the Cleveland Browns I absolutely love. Alex Wright, he'll challenge for a starting spot on that defensive end position opposite Garrett. Wouldn't surprise me if he ends up being the starter in 2023. David Bell, per our lads, is already the day one starter. I know the NFL Network gave him a 5th, 6th round grade. I don't care. Watch the tape. First round tape. He's only a 5th, 6th round pick because he ran a 4.65 at the combine. I bet you he ends up as a starter. If he ran a 4.45 at the combine, he's probably the first receiver off the board. The tape is that good. York, a kicker, maybe a reach, definite starter. Jerome Ford, running back from Cincinnati. I bet you he plays in 2022. Kareem Hunt's a free agent after the season. You got his replacement ready to rock and roll. I like this draft quite a bit. I'm not sure C plus is a fair grade, but I got to give Cleveland Browns kudos for getting some really good players despite not drafting till the third round. Next up are the three teams I gave a B minus grade to, and those three teams are the Cincinnati Bengals, the Green Bay Packers, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. First is Cincinnati. They did a really great job in free agency shoring up the offensive line. So I thought the biggest issue they had in the draft was fixing the secondary or upgrading the secondary. Daxton Hill, fantastic value at 31. Listed as a safety by the NFL Network. I could be safety or corner. Then in the second round, you double dip again in the secondary. Cam Taylor-Britt, a player I really like, very solid pick. Zachary Carter in the third round. Again, another solid pick. Daxton Hill's probably going to start somewhere in the secondary day one, and it wouldn't surprise me if Taylor-Britt ends up earning a starting spot sometime in 2022. Real solid draft for the AFC champions, getting a starter with pick 31 and maybe another one in the second round. This is really good draft, especially for a team not used to picking this late in the draft. Great job by the Bengals. Next is the Green Bay Packers. 2 first-round picks. They go with a pair of Georgia Bulldogs, Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt. Now, I had some other linebackers ahead of Walker, but I really love the fit here. I question the fit about Devontae Wyatt, but I also question when Kenny Clark was drafted how he would fit. That worked perfectly. So kudos to the Green Bay Packers. The trade up with the Minnesota Vikings so you can get Christian Watson may haunt the Minnesota Vikings for years to come. Great selection, but I really love the next 5 picks. Ryan out of UCLA played tackle. I think he could be a day one starter at guard. Dubes, a nice wide receiver late in the 4th round. Zach Tom played tackle and center at Wake Forest. I think he's more depth. Don't think he'll start, but I love the versatility. And Nick Barry, I'm probably butchering the name, Steele in the 5th round. He's going to make the team. And then 7th round pick, Tariq Carpenter. He played safety for Georgia Tech, 230-pound safety. He's going to be an NFL linebacker. I bet you anything he makes the team. Great late round picks for the Green Bay Packers. Maybe B minus is a little low, but you get some really good players in the draft here. Finally, to clean up my B minus grades is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If any team should have traded out of the first round, it's Tampa Bay, and they did just that. They end up getting one of my favorite players in the draft, Logan Hall. Probably won't start in 2022, but will be a starter in 2023. He's going to contribute quite a bit this year. A really good player. And then they also get 2 of my draft crushes. Rachaad White, it has nothing to do with him being from Kansas City, but this is a really good 3-down running back who's not going to start with Leonard Fournette there, but he is going to contribute quite a bit. And then Zion McCollum, a 5th round pick. I thought he could have gone in the 3rd round. Small school player, special teams ace day one, potential starter, and you get him in the 5th round. Excellent job by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They also drafted 2 tight ends. Otten, the first pick, in the 4th round, could be a day one starter if Gronk decides to retire. Exceptionally solid pick here. This is an absolute perfect draft for a team that really didn't need any starters in 2022, but get some future starters and several players who are going to contribute in 2022. I gave 3 teams a B in this draft, and those 3 teams are the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Tennessee Titans. First off with Jacksonville, Walker at number 1 is interesting, elite athlete, but I wouldn't be surprised if in 3 years from now some people are calling him a bust because he doesn't rack up the sacks. He could have 20 sacks in 3 years, and despite being a monster against the run, this could hurt perception that this was worth the first pick in the draft. But Walker opposite Josh Allen could be an absolute nightmare for opposing teams. Then you have a great move. You trade up in the 1st round. You snag Devin Lloyd at 27. This is a guy who I easily thought would go top 20, one of my favorite players in the draft. Then you wait till the 3rd round. Another day one starter in Fortner, probably starts at center day one. Muma, your pick 5 picks later, is really interesting because Jacksonville gave Foy Ola Cohen, I'm probably butchering that name, a 3-year, $45 million contract to be the starting linebacker, starting inside linebacker. Devin Lloyd will start opposite him. I could see a situation where Muma, Lloyd, and Olakon all play at the same time. Walker and Allen are going to play defensive end. This works really good against a team like Tennessee, who you play twice a year. You got Derrick Henry trying to run the ball 30 times, get a lot of speed, size, athleticism there. Bottom line, great job by the Jacksonville Jaguars here in this draft. I've often made fun of the Seattle Seahawks for making some crazy draft selections, but they had a really good draft this year. No offensive tackle is ready to start in the NFL more than Charles Cross, day one starter at left tackle. Great job. Then you grabbed a local kid, Lucas, in the third round, starter at day one starter on the right side. Fantastic job here. Kobe Bryant and Tarek Wooden in the fourth and fifth round. Wouldn't surprise me if both these guys end up being starting corners. Great job by the Seattle Seahawks here. You had the 40th and 41st pick in the draft. Pick number 40, Boy Mafe, easily could have gone in the first round. Kenneth Walker, I like the value at 41. This is pretty much where he should go, but you have Chris Carson returning, Rashad Penny, a former first round pick who looked like a complete bust. Got a chance to start late in the season. Looked amazing. Looked like this is going to be, this is kind of what you're drafting when you picked him 20th overall out of San Diego State. So I'm not really sure what you do with Kenneth Walker here. Is he the number 1 running back? Is he the number 3 running back? Now, if he ends up being the starter, this draft grade jumps up to an A. It wouldn't surprise me if 5 years from now, people are saying that Seattle had the best draft in 2022. This draft is really, really good. My final B grade goes to the Tennessee Titans. So if you're going to lose A.J. Brown, you get some value, picks number 18 and 101, and then with the 18th pick, you get Treylon Burks, who is comped as A.J. Brown. So if you're going to replace A.J. Brown, replace him with Treylon Burks. That makes all the sense in the world. Perfect substitute. Then you trade down, you get some extra draft picks. Roger McCreary early in the second round. I'm a little curious about this pick because you used a first and a third round pick last year on corners. 22nd round pick Kristen Fulton is also a starter. I might have gone safety instead, so I'm kind of curious how this is going to work out. If McCreary's just drafted early in the second round for depth, I don't like it, but if he's going to play safety or if he's going to compete for a starting spot, then I really like this pick. Same thing can be said for Nicholas Petit-Frere. Sorry if I'm butchering the name, but there's a hole at guard from when Roger Stafford left via free agency. I thought Frere was more of a tackle. The question is, does he play right tackle? You move Dylan Reduce, last year's second round pick, inside. Do you plan on moving Petit-Frere inside? If this is a guy who's just a swing tackle, I don't like that at all. But this is a starter, which he should be. Great move. Then you hit an absolute home run. Malik Willis in mid-third round. If this wasn't the best pick in the draft, it's one of the top 3 picks in the draft. You get a potential starting quarterback in the middle of the third round. Absolute home run for the Tennessee Titans. Then both fourth round picks. I absolutely love for the Tennessee Titans. Hassan Haskins, not a good fit for all teams. Perfect for the Tennessee Titans. Perfect backup for Derrick Henry. He will play some. You got to spell a guy like Derrick Henry during the season. Haskins, perfect guy for that. The Maryland tight end, Aquanu, ran a 4.53 at the combine. Undersized as a tight end, kind of a H-back. You got to get creative in how you use them, but Tennessee's the type of team that could use them, get some value out of this pick. Really love this pick for Tennessee here. Look, if you're going to lose a player like A.J. Brown, you do it the right way. You do it by getting his replacement in the draft with a player that fits his skill set. Fantastic job if you are going to lose a player like A.J. Brown. Then you get your potential starting quarterback mid-third round. I'm on the fence about Petit-Frere and McCreary, but overall, fantastic job by the Tennessee Titans of this draft. 3 teams earned a B-plus grade. The Pittsburgh Steelers, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to start off by breaking down the Philadelphia Eagles here. First off, I love that the Eagles jumped from 15 to 13 to snag Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis would have absolutely been the pick at 14 for the Baltimore Ravens. I don't care what anybody says. The Ravens would have used this pick on Jordan Davis. So you get a future superstar defensive tackle, goes to the right team. Remember, the Eagles cut Fletcher Cox, re-signed him to a one-year deal. So Davis is going to rotate in the lineup in 2022, dominate completely in 2023. Then you trade for A.J. Brown. Perfect fit. You already had Devontae Smith and Jalen Reagor. You don't have a big physical wide receiver. Well, now you do. Perfect fit, perfect team. Then you get Jurgens in the second round. This is going to replace Travis Kelce next year. You replaced a future Hall of Famer in Jason Kelce with Cam Jurgens. Maybe plays guard this year. Starts in 2023. Then one of the absolute steals in the draft. You get Nakobe Dean. I potentially had him going to Philly in the first round. You get him in the third round. Absolute steal. Don't forget, you get the Saints first round pick in 2023. So this is a team that this is a playoff team that vastly improved this year with 2 first round picks in 2023. This is a team set to dominate the NFC East in the 20s. Next up is the Kansas City Chiefs. First thing I liked that they did was they leapfrog Buffalo to get Trent McDuffie at 21. Excellent value here. And then at pick number 30, you still get your edge rusher and George Kalifdis. Then you trade down with New England in the second round and you get Sky Moore, a player a lot of people thought would go to Kansas City in the first round. Now, what makes a great draft is rounds 3 through 5. All right. Round 1 is for TV, but teams that really do good in the NFL have to nail picks in rounds 3 through 5, and Kansas City did that perfectly. Leo Chenal should have gone in the second round. This is a potential starter that Kansas City snags with pick 103. This is a team that's already drafted 4 players, 4 potential starters, hosted the AFC Championship game for 4 consecutive years, and you get a potential starter late in the third round. Willie Gay, watch out. This guy could end up replacing you as a rookie. He's that good. Joshua Williams, you get late in the fourth round. This is a guy getting hype in the second round. Could have gone in the third round very easily. You get him late in the fourth. This is a small school guy. NFL athleticism, super productive at a small school. Chiefs have had success with this. Jarvarius Sneed, starter at corner, fourth round pick. Now, Darian Kennard, dominant left tackle at Kentucky, could have gone in the second round. Probably should have gone in the third round. Chiefs get him early in the fifth. This is an interesting pick because Orlando Brown may have run the slowest 40 of all time at the Combine, ran a 5.83. Well, Darian Kennard ran a slow 40, 5.31. Played left tackle in the SEC. Projects to move inside. I'm not so sure the Chiefs may give him a look at being the starting right tackle, or you could replace Joe Thurney as a cap casualty. This happens when you make $80 million and you're a guard. You look for a cheaper replacement. You get one here. It won't happen this year, but this is a guy in the fifth round. Could be a starter at the right tackle. Could be a potential starter on the inside. Teams that nail rounds 3 through 5 always do well in the NFL, and that's exactly what the Kansas City Chiefs did here. Finally, my final B plus goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Last year, I gave the Patriots an A plus because everybody said they would have to trade up to get Mac Jones. They don't trade up. Mac Jones falls to them at 15 as a rookie. He goes to the Pro Bowl. Wouldn't surprise me if the same thing happens with Kenny Pickett. You wait, you get your quarterback. Fantastic job by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then in the second round, you get George Pickens. This is a guy who could have gone in the first round. Potential starter here. Really love the value here, especially at 50. Then in the third round, perfect fit, DeMarvin Leal. He'll contribute some in 2022, but I think what will happen is in the offseason, he'll put on what I like to call the NFL 20. Basically, he'll add some size in the weight room. Probably starts in 2023. Calvin Austin, the guy should have gone in the third round. Special teams demon, ran a 4.33 at the Combine because of his size, not an every down player. But he's a guy who's going to add instant offense, use him about 3 to 5 times a game. Big play threat, electric player. Love getting him late in the fourth round. Then you get Hayward, son of Ironhead Hayward, goes in the 6th round. Bet you anything he makes the team. Interesting pick in the 7th round, small school quarterback, goes to the right team. I hope he gets a good opportunity here. Even if he doesn't make the team, this is what you want to do in the 7th round, take a flyer on a pick like this. Fantastic job in the draft by the Pittsburgh Steelers. 3 teams earned an A grade in this draft, and the Carolina Panthers are one of them. I gave them an A-. I love what they did in this draft. They had everyone thinking quarterback. Instead, they did what I thought they should have done and take a left tackle. Ike Ekwonu was my number 1 player in the draft. This is a day 1 starter at left tackle, and then they still get their quarterback. Instead of reaching for him in the 1st round to get him late in the 3rd, I thought Matt Corral was going to go in the 1st round. You get him late in the 3rd, absolute steal. Don't be surprised if he ends up being the starting quarterback in Carolina. Then in the 4th round, Brandon Smith, 1st round athleticism, but he didn't ever live up to the potential. That's the type of guy you want to take in the 4th round. Worst case scenario, special teams demon, backup player, or future Pro Bowler. Same thing with Amari Barno. You get him in the 6th round. This is the guy who ran the 4.36 at the combine. Great athleticism, didn't play up to potential. Worst case scenario, backup special teams demon. Best case scenario, future Pro Bowler. Absolutely love it. Then Matt Rule, former Baylor coach, takes one of his former recruits with the last pick in the draft. Fantastic job by the Carolina Panthers. Bottom line, instead of reaching for your quarterback, you get the best player in the draft at the 6th spot. Then you get your possible future quarterback late in the 3rd round. Kudos, Carolina Panthers. You aced this draft. The New York Jets earned an A in this draft. And look, getting Sauce Gardner at 4 and Garrett Wilson at 10, that's okay. But what earned an A was the trades that they made for their next 2 selections. Jermaine Johnson started to fall into this draft, and you could have taken Jermaine Johnson at 10, and I would have thought that would have been a great pick. However, you start to free fall. You smartly trade up, and you go ahead and you grab him. Then in the 2nd round, the number 1 running back is available. You smartly move up a few picks. You go ahead and you get Breece Hall. Bottom line, it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Jets end up with 4 Pro Bowlers here. Then late in the 3rd, you get a guy like Jeremy Ruckert. Now, this is a guy at Ohio State, didn't put up big numbers, but look, you had Chris Olave goes 11th, and Garrett Wilson goes number 10 in this draft on Ohio State. So sure, you're not going to catch a lot of passes. Good blocker, really good hands. You got a young quarterback. You want a tight end like this on the roster. He may not start. He will contribute. Bottom line, 4 potential Pro Bowlers in this draft. Well done, Jets. I have the Baltimore Ravens winning this draft. They did earn an A+. Now, there was only 2 players in this draft that were clear-cut the best players at their position, and that was Kyle Hamilton at safety and Tyler Linderbaum, the center. Both those players were chosen by the Baltimore Ravens. First off, Hollywood Brown, he wasn't going to be part of the Ravens' future plans. You trade him for a first-round pick. Then the Ravens trade down 2 spots, and that's where they take Linderbaum. What's really impressive about this trade is that the player Buffalo took at 23 wasn't rated nearly as high as Linderbaum, who was chosen 2 picks later. I mentioned Baltimore would have taken Jordan Davis at 14 if he was available. Well, they get a very similar player in Travis Jones, very similar player, massive upside, first-round talent. Baltimore snags him in the 3rd round, one of the top 5 steals of the draft. And then for those of you who don't know, Baltimore's new defensive coordinator was their former linebackers coach, went to Michigan last year, took over as defensive coordinator, transformed that defense around. David Ojabo, Michigan Wolverine, ruptured its Achilles tendon during the pro day, probably won't play at all this year. I didn't like this pick for all teams, loved it for Baltimore. You have intense, in-depth knowledge of this kid, plus you can afford to wait a year for this kid to play. Future Pro Bowler, you can roll the dice here. Baltimore has had more success with massive tackles, more success than anybody else in the draft. Take the biggest player in the draft in Daniel Faleo, the massive 6'8", 380-pound tackle. Don't like this pick for all teams. Love it for the Ravens. We mentioned John Harbaugh already, but special teams coordinator in the past, taking a punter in the fourth round. Great pick for a head coach who was a former special teams coordinator. Fourth round pick, Isaiah Likely from Coastal Carolina, former wide receiver, just got too big to play wide receiver. 6'4", 245-pound player, could play tight end, could play wide receiver. Look, I can go into detail on all 11 of the Baltimore Ravens picks because I looked each and every one of them. This is the only team in the draft that picked 11 players that I can go into intense detail on all 11 picks. All 11 players could make the Ravens. All 11 of these players could contribute in 2022. Congratulations, Baltimore Ravens. You clearly won the 2022 NFL Draft.